Hi, it's Friday, and I'm going to talk about the Brooklyn Business Assignment number 2 that's due on Sunday before midnight. So you have a few extra days in which you can work on this project. You shouldn't be intimidated by it. You all know you're all studying a business. You know the business you're studying. You thought about it. You've talked about it together. And it's a question of getting all that information, making a presentation to somebody who doesn't know anything about it. So think about like with a luxury project, how you pretended that you were working for a company, a consulting company that had a contract now to work for Burberry and to figure out what Burberry was doing very well in the online experience, what was working, what could be improved upon, how customers related to the website, what features were positive, negative. So the same thing for this. Imagine you're working in a company that does marketing and you're asked to study this ballet school or this coffee shop or this restaurant, whatever it is, this real estate office, and you have now to make a presentation. Let's say you're in this boardroom and now you have a couple of people in the company who want to listen and find out what you've discovered. So you really want to start by discussing, first of all, you have to explain what it is. What kind of a business is it? What do they sell? What kind of services do they provide? What kind of products are they featuring? You want to talk a little bit about the price range, right? You can have, for example, a clothing store that has stuff for 99 cents, or you can have things like in some of these luxury stores, maybe the least expensive thing is a couple of $100s. So you want to give us a sense of that. Is it a very low price bargain type store? Is it a moderately expensive? Give examples, explain the business. If you know something about the kind of management that exists. Is it a family-run business? Is it a franchise? You know, what type of business is it? Talk about that as well. The appearance is very important. So you're going to want to spend some time on that. You might even want to start out after you just set the stage for explaining the kind of business that it is, what they do. You know, in that context, you might also want to say very early on, who is the clientele? Who is the customer? Who is their target market? And you can see that by observing, right? You can, and some of you may have talked to the business owners, so that's a different, you can then ask the question, of course. But if you don't have that opportunity to talk to them and you're doing more of an observation, for example, in Starbucks, we can probably very quickly see that the clientele isn't so much a neighborhood-based clientele. We can recognize, if we're students, we probably have no trouble recognizing very quickly other students by the way they're dressed, by their age range. So probably you can see that, oh, a lot of these people who are going to Starbucks, you know, 80% are students, and then we've got a lot of faculty. You recognize them carrying their briefcases or wearing their glasses that faculty or professors are likely to wear, or the administrators have a certain appearance or look, and so you can recognize them. And you might want to discuss that this is a place that, you know, seems to be largely or almost entirely servicing the community of Brooklyn College. Another place, let's say the Caribbean Bakery, a couple of blocks down, may not be a place that's really that's providing products for people at Brooklyn College. Maybe that's a much more neighborhood-based business. People who live in the neighborhood, maybe people who are Caribbean. You might want to notice that too. You can sometimes notice by accents or the language people are they speaking a different language? Is there a certain ethnic group that this restaurant or that this business is focused upon? So that's something you might want to identify by observation. And also, you want to spend time on the appearance of the business. You will have a section in your paper about that. So if you were passing by, and that's the first thing that you're going to do when you start to think about a business, if you're passing by on the street, what strikes you? What is impressive? What is confusing about it? Is the sign perhaps not clear? There's a locksmith that's not too far from Brooklyn College, where you would think the guy must, or who owns it, or the person who runs the store. I didn't ever see it. I never went inside when it was open, but I passed by when it was closed. And it has all kinds of signs and newspaper clippings posted on the window, things that have nothing to do, it seems, with the business. All kinds of boxes and things piled up, and it just an abundance of stuff that doesn't seem really to be connected clearly to the message. So the message, think about this concept of branding. A company has to create a very clear, concise message that people walking by, driving by very quickly can pick up, because we're not like strolling, and we're not reading, and we're not processing every bit of information. And if there's a huge amount of information to process, most of us are not even going to bother. We're just going to walk by, and it's just going to appear to us as a place that we probably don't want to go near because it's too confusing. But if we get a simple message, a clear message, a sort of an appealing message, then it may be a place that we might just decide spontaneously to go in. Imagine there's a ballet school, and let's say you've never taken ballet lessons before. You've never even considered taking ballet lessons before, but you see a big poster in the windows saying that we provide beginning ballet lessons for adults, males and females. It's a great kind of exercise, physical activity. We have beginning classes. You don't have to have ever done anything before. It'll help you be, more confident, more graceful, more physically fit. And all of a sudden you say, oh, well, that's a great idea. I never imagined doing that, but maybe, I haven't been going to the gym. I have a membership, but I'm not really going that often. Maybe going to a ballet class twice a week might be just what I need. And it's something that you never would have imagined, but you were captivated by this message and by the overall appearance of the place. People come out, people seem to look interesting, they look like people that you might, feel comfortable interacting with, and so you decide to do this. And it's not something you ever would have sought out, you never would have searched for it, but you pass by and you see the place and you decide to go in and give it a chance. So in your report, you want to have about 2 pages. You can include a couple of photographs if that's something that you feel can help you make your points. You can, if it's like really a great appearance outside and you want to talk about what the business is doing very well in that way, you might show pictures. Let's say it's a business that's not really accomplishing very much in terms of its appearance and its interior decor. You might be talking about a Korean restaurant, and instead of it having any kind of theme, right, it has, let's say, just plain white walls, wooden tables and chairs, no tablecloths, just no art, no kind of posters, nothing, no music. So let's say you go in and there's no theme. Think about sometimes if you've been to a Mexican restaurant, there's art on the wall, there's colorful things that evoke a sense of what it might be like to be in Mexico. So you have a Mexican music playing. So that creates an experience that people enjoy, and they remember, and they come back to. The lighting is important, all kinds of issues. So if your restaurant is doing absolutely nothing, you might want to take a picture and say, look, here we are in a Caribbean restaurant, but we have no sense whatsoever. It doesn't mean that it has to be very expensive, but maybe if they just painted it differently, or maybe if they had posters that could be relatively inexpensive on the wall, that would at least visually create the sense of the Caribbean. And and what happens now is that if you don't know until you go inside even the kind of food that they're serving. So you're losing a whole group of people who might like Caribbean food, or who might like to try it, if you welcomed them, if you announced that this is the kind of thing that you're doing. And so that should be clear, and that should be something. If a restaurant is kosher, for example, it's got to be obvious. People are not going to go in and ask. They're going to want to see a direct and very clear indication, so that they know that this is a place that they could go into. So the signage is very important. So you can talk about those kinds of issues. In some cases, your general evaluation and assessment is going to be something that might seem very simple. This issue of having to, provide prices and having a list of services that are offered, or the fact that the floor hasn't been swept in a long time, or the windows haven't been cleaned and you can't even see inside the store because the windows are so dusty or dirty. These are basic things, but these are things that are extremely important that you want to talk about. And if your business is doing things that are great, that are very successful, that's something you could talk about too. We're not only talking about bad things. And then the marketing. What do you know about the marketing? Is the business marketing itself? Now, marketing is not only about advertising, it's not only about promotions and publicity, it's also about the appearance of the store itself. So the store is marketing itself in the way that it arranges its products, or the way that it communicates the kinds of services it provides. The salespeople are marketing the brand, right? Do the salespeople have a professional, or do they have an appearance that is related to whatever it is that they're selling? So if you were working, for example, in a luxury store, you wouldn't expect to have a salesperson whose hair was cut in a very unusual way, or that was blue or green or something that was unexpected. That would just not be conducive to the message that the brand is trying to communicate. That's why when you go into luxury stores, you find that employees are oftentimes wearing black. They're wearing clothes that are simple, that are not detracting from the overall environment of the brand. They don't want to call too much attention personally to themselves, so they wear something black. Or why do doctors or dental hygienists, why do they wear white coats? Because they're trying to have a very professional appearance. They're not wearing clothing with labels and designer logos or something like that. That wouldn't be professional. So what are all those elements that you see when you look outside the store, when you go inside the store, the way things are arranged? Who is the target market? Who are the customers? How are they using the space? How are they interacting, right? If you're talking about a neighborhood coffee shop, people may go in there every day to have breakfast, and they know the waitress or they know the service people by first name, and there's a very open environment where people can talk to each other, like in a neighborhood bar. In a Starbucks, that's not appropriate. People are much more formal, um, much more detached. There's not People don't tend to spontaneously start conversations with people that they don't know. But in another environment, it might be entirely appropriate. So you want to talk a little bit about that. You might want to talk about specific things that the brand could do in terms of marketing. You might not be up to that point yet, and this is an assignment where you're going to determine what you know and what you don't know, and you can say that we really haven't figured out how the brand, or if the brand should be thinking about marketing itself to the Brooklyn College community, but we know that they're doing this or that, or they're not doing this very effectively, right? Perhaps you found an advertisement that the brand or that the company had in a local newspaper, and it was really, so much text, or it was so, it was just not, the photograph had nothing to do, that sometimes that kind of thing happens. They have a photograph that has nothing to do with the kind of service or the kind of business that that they are. So you could identify something like that, a marketing effort that the company made that you thought maybe could be improved upon, right? Or if you don't know, you can simply say that we're not sure what they're doing. We're in the process of investigating these 4 or 5 different things. So that's fine too. So, you have to think about your product, you have to think about your target market, you have to think about branding and what kind of a vision, if any, that the company is conveying, right? Whether they're doing it intentionally or unintentionally, you want to talk about that. Make sure you talk a little bit about the pricing, talk about how products are presented, how they're arranged. That's important to understand, and just give a sense of painting a picture of what this business is, how they convey their message, their vision, and are they doing it effectively or not, and what are some suggestions, what are some possible directions that you think they could go in. So thanks, I'll look forward to receiving it, and I will give you feedback, and I'll give you some suggestions on what you can do, but this should be an overall presentation. It's not something to be worried about, to be afraid of, but you want to, it's a statement of what you know so far and what you don't know, and what you agree upon and disagree upon. And that's great if you have disagreements in the group. If one person sees it one way, another person sees it another way, that's something, that's the importance of working with other people. Because if you're working by yourself, you have your vision and your idea, and that might be very different from what somebody else has. And so if somebody else can capture another reality that you might have missed entirely, even if you don't agree with it, it's worth having a dialogue about, and so you can bring that out in your report. So that's important too. So I look forward to it. I think you are doing really great work. You have done with the luxury